back here on the Cover 3 podcast, and at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, it'll be your big time on CBS game as top 5 Notre Dame hits the road to play USC. Now the Trojans, thanks to some gritty late night heroics, are already bowl eligible. So that's not a storyline here, but I know. Notre Dame going into the Coliseum. It is a very obvious win and you're in scenario for Notre Dame in the college football playoff. We are playing for the Golden Shillelagh. And this line feels low.
Does it?
Kind of.
Yeah. I think so.
It almost is giving USC credit for the win over UCLA as opposed to UCLA getting a demerit for that performance in some ways.
Which is how I grade games, by the way.
Credit or demerit?
Yeah. Let's dig into this. Let's look at all the information. Let's see who's walking out with the responsibility for why this result was not as expected.
I mean, I think the line makes sense in that this is only Notre Dame's third actual road game of the season. They've played neutral site games, but they've only played on the road twice. Once was the opener against Texas A&M, and once was whatever the hell you want to call the Purdue game. And the other is that if you look at USC this season, they have lost 5 times. They have not lost a single game by 2 scores. They've all been 1-score losses. Their average loss has been 3.8 points per game. That is the second smallest number out there of teams with at least 3 losses. Only Cal has a lower number at minus 3.4. And I do think this is an interesting spot because Notre Dame's played 5 games now without Benjamin Morrison, who's a pretty key part of their defense in that secondary, who is probably a first-round pick. But they've played Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State, Virginia, and Army. And of those 5, Georgia Tech, which was their first game, was the only one who really did any damage on them through the air as far as yardage wise. And they actually threw a touchdown. They haven't given up a passing touchdown since. The USC is a little different. USC has receivers that Notre Dame's actually going to have to worry about covering, which is not something they have done without Benjamin Morrison. It has not been a concern for them. Now, on the other side of that, the big change with USC has been the quarterback change. Has it improved things? Let's find out. USC with Miller Moss offense, 2.58 points per drive. With Maeva, 2.24. Success rate, 46% with Moss, 47% with Maeva, so about the same. Explosive play rate, 15% with Moss, 13% with Maeva. Explosive pass rate. Explosive run rate is exactly the same. And then red zone, 4.83 points per red zone possession with Moss, 4 points with Maeva. The offense has gotten worse since they made the change. Now, granted, it's only been 2 games, so maybe it'll improve. But I don't know. I feel like I would have more faith in USC in this game if Miller Moss was their quarterback than I do with Jordan Maeva.
Interesting. I think so too. Look, it's not that USC cannot win this game. I think I want to fade the Irish when they would lack motivation or when they're going to face a D-line that can really exploit them. And I don't know that USC's D-line really can. And this is game 12 of the year. Are they really going to be able to get after Riley Leonard? He's playing pretty well, man. The third down stuff would be the concern. Can they convert when they're behind the chains on third down? That has been a bit of an issue for this team. And you could say it's an issue for every team, but relative to their strengths and weaknesses, Notre Dame is not a great team when they're behind the sticks, which kind of makes sense because Leonard is an improved thrower, but his legs are still better than his arm is. So from that standpoint, I get it. I just think Notre Dame is more physical than USC. And yet, think about it, to Tom's point, Penn State, I think, is every bit as good as Notre Dame, although the Donka injury at right tackle, that's a little concerning to me right there because he's going to be out for that's long term, I think I read.
Mm-hmm.
But we can at least say that they're similar quality teams. And, USC gave Penn State all they wanted in that ballgame. It was not a walk in the park. And, USC has not quit on Lincoln Riley. So I could see it, but I just don't know to me, UCLA, with how banged up they were on the offensive line, I don't think that's the same level of test for this USC defense as the Irish are going to be.
Notre Dame continues to be so mean. I don't think that there's a let up, you know? They don't have a conference championship game. Like they don't have, like, this is it. They go out there, they make their final statement. Then you get until December 19th or 20th to December 20th or 21st to be able to go and get yourself ready to host a home playoff game. Like this is, it seems to me like they will approach this the same way they have approached most of the games that they have played. Well, what do we think? Like Louisville and Georgia Tech are maybe the only spots where it hasn't really been crisp. And there have been some penalties and there have been some, some third down issues that we've highlighted here on the show. But if USC does this and pulls off the upset, then that's a great sign for Lincoln Riley and sort of the fabric of this team, because I would not say that falls in line with the same group that had just late game errors against Michigan, late game errors against Minnesota. There have been a lot of games this year where being able to close out the victory. Now, if they backdoor this thing and cover the spread, sure, whatever. But my expectation is that if both teams play to character, Notre Dame's able to win this game fairly handily. It's my expectation.
I will say, though, going back to my point earlier, what's the best passing offense Notre Dame has faced in your estimation?
Louisville?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And how many teams this year have actually thrown multiple touchdowns against Notre Dame?
Is it 1 or 0?
It was 1. It was Louisville. Who threw 3 touchdowns in that game and had 264 yards passing. Like, that was the best quarterback. Those were the best receivers they have faced all year. I'm not sitting here saying like USC is going to run rampant on them. It's just, if you look at Notre Dame's overall passing defense numbers, you have to look at them in the context of who they've faced. I mean, they faced 2 option offenses. They faced Florida State, who this year has been horrible in the passing game. They faced Georgia Tech, who actually did throw the ball a bit on them, but is still what you would consider a run-first offense. Stanford, Miami of Ohio, Purdue, Northern Illinois. They have not seen many competent passing attacks, and the best one that they saw had success and kept it close. That was a 31-24 game. 24 is also the most points anybody has scored on Notre Dame at any point this year. I think USC is very much more a live dog than they're getting credit for from a lot of people, and I think that's why the spread is where it is.
This playoff race is going to be real interesting if that happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is Irish losing or out?
I don't know.
Good chance.
Listen,
it depends on what else happens.
It depends on what else happens. I mean, we're dealing with
Bama beat Auburn. We're
dealing with so much imperfection and mediocrity that we're going to be choosing. Do you know what the final college football playoff? Dang it, we're going to be back here tonight talking. Why am I even spending these minutes talking about this? But like, the final college football playoff spots are 1:55 a.m. at the bar. I mean, like,
she's breathing.
You. I know. You.
Right. I mean, they're minus 250 to win the ball game. They're minus 650 at FanDuel to make the playoff.
Odds makers are implying that a loss would still make them okay.
Not a lock, but I mean, it's definitely more likely that they are in with a loss than out.